encouraging all to say yes to Jesus Christ. Tonight on the Tactical Catholic Podcast, we're celebrating our freedom and talking about things that make noise. That's right, we're going to discuss freedom, liberty, and the Second Amendment. Should we be carrying guns around like Walker, Texas Ranger? Or perhaps no gun like Sheriff Andy Taylor? A new segment, fireworks, and a whole lot more start right now.
Hey everybody, Tactical Catholic, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Tactical Catholic Podcast, making EWTN look like the 700 Club. I said I was going to use it again. So before we get going on my rambles, let me ask my friend and my co-host Kent, how you doing?
I am doing good.
Can you hear me?
Yep. And then but yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay.
I know no one really cares, but it was a crazy day at the Cleveland with free agency happening and basically getting the whole team back. So that it's been pretty good for sporting in Cleveland. I'm not feeling that great, but everything else is doing good. It's warming up. No rain. We've been just drenched with rain. And I know going into the holiday weekend, it's just going to be hopefully nice and warm up here. What about you guys? Are you pretty warm?
It's always hot.
Yes.
If you want to know what the weather's like in Memphis, just say hot. And you're probably right. Even in December.
Yeah.
It just stays hot here, but it's not horrible. I think we were in the 80s.
Okay.
And clouds, and it hasn't been too bad.
Okay.
So
good.
So I have a brand new thing I want to try to do. Now listeners, this is only going to work if you do your part. If you do your part, then I can add this new segment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even have a name for it, so maybe you can help me come up with a name. But for right now, I'm just going to call it Andy Reads the Podcast Reviews. Because we got some, and I wanted to read them online because it was kind of cool. So look, here's how this is going to work. If you listen to the podcast or you listen to the show, you need to leave a review. And what I'll do in exchange is read your review online, so everyone will know how awesome you are.
Yes.
For leaving us the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's nothing more fair than that. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to read the two that we got in June because they came actually a week apart from one another. So here's the first one we got was from, I guess I'll call it your handle, your code name.
Yes.
Code name Call Me Humble. And Call Me Humble says, 5 stars. This is just like inviting these guys into your home. The conversation is lively, meaningful, and informational. The guests are great, and it's not just for men. Topics cover information and inspiration for women as well. Very down to earth. I enjoy each episode and like to rerun them. Now, I say to you, your check is in the mail. That's an awesome review. Thank you.
Great.
That's fantastic. So that's the first one that we got, and so I'm super excited to have read that one.
Mm-hmm.
Let me bring this next one, because now here, they have these headlines, right? And I don't know how to interpret this. I'm going to interpret it positively. But if it's not supposed to be interpreted that way, then somebody can let me know, okay?
Okay.
So College Catholic says, Andy equals total bro. I tried to look that up to see if that means, because, I grew up when someone's your bro, they're your friend.
Yes.
But then I also saw someone say that it means obnoxious, drunken party goers. So I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to say. So it says Andy equals total bro. Andy does a great job of making the podcast into a conversation rather than a lesson. Oftentimes, other sourcers will preach about a subject, but Andy and Kent have mastered the retention of theological value under the guise of colloquial, friendly banter. That sounds like a college guy, doesn't it?
Wow. Yes.
Colloquial, friendly banter.
That's a great.
That makes me feel smart. I'm glad I'm wearing my glasses.
I need to get some.
I put my fez on, so I feel intellectual. So that's fantastic, and I appreciate College Catholic and Call Me Humble for leading such sweet reviews.
Yes.
On iTunes. There's a thumbs up on this side and a thumbs up on the other side.
There you go.
So for those of you listening at home, that's 2 thumbs up. So let's get some more reviews on here, and then maybe I'll find a jingle, the review jingle or something.
We could start.
Maybe I'll do a dance, a little.
The review jingle. Yeah.
The review jingle.
Yep.
So anyway, that's where we are with, and that's the end of that segment. I don't have a catchy way of closing it. Just thanks for leaving the sweet reviews, and we're going to kind of move into the topic. So, I did not know that today was Canada Day. Mm-hmm. What does Canada Day mean?
I don't know. I didn't even ask.
You know?
I don't know. I never asked out. I don't know if. Actually, Catholic Sis mentioned it to me the other day. That's how I found out that she. And I'm not sure. I don't know if Al's still in the chat room to let us know, but
I know it has something to do with Canada.
Oh yeah, we could probably Google it.
Man, I dare not open any additional internet windows with my great connection.
Let's see.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, What?
Nope, go ahead.
I love my internet provider. No, I was going to say that it's 4th of July is this weekend, and it's time to start shooting fireworks. And are fireworks legal where you live?
Certain ones. I think everything that doesn't shoot in the air, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe like little firecrackers might be legal, but not a lot. I mean, not the big stuff. I mean, of course, but it's just I haven't got, really. The kids are so young. I can't really do anything of that nature with them yet, and no, there's nothing really that we could use right now to be safe. But what about you? Is there a lot of laws, or is it kind of?
We have lots of laws in the town where I live, but in Shelby County in general, metropolitan area around Memphis with all the suburbs, you are not allowed to shoot fireworks.
Okay.
And so you can't sell them. You have to go outside of the county to sell them.
Okay.
So do people still shoot them off? People still shoot them off.
Oh, yeah. That's
and the cops don't really do anything, but it's still the law. And so most of the little townships have some kind of a fireworks display. So we'll go see those, but I will not have my own tactical Catholic display from my house. I'm gonna let somebody else spend all that money, and I'll just enjoy their work and sit back and spray myself for mosquitoes.
Well, it's kind of funny to see, and I was mentioning it on Al's show earlier. There's a Servants of Mary Shrine has a huge fireworks display. It's not on the 4th, but it's close to the 4th. But they use, it's legit fireworks. They use the big, shells, I guess is what they're called. But it's amazing what they are allowed to use. And I think he's gone through a safety program, but and he asked me if you want to get trained. I'm like, I just don't. I mean,
Yes.
I know it sounds cool, and I'll be tall so I could get really far away from the, lighting it, but I just never got it. It's just not my kind of thing. I don't know. I love watching them. Disney. Can we talk about
that was my segue. When you went to Disney, did you not watch some sweet fireworks?
Yes, I love
There were fireworks everywhere.
Yes.
So which parks did you see fireworks?
We Magic Kingdom, and we saw them at now it's I call it MGM, but it's now Hollywood Studios, and they do it correctly. I mean, if you're watching, I mean, the 4th of July. I mean, it's they're great around here, but it's not Disney. There's
nothing is Disney.
I know.
We're doing another Disney show before the summer's over.
I was joking around. We should do a or what do you call it? A spin-off of this show, just talking about Disney. Just talk about
Disney Catholic.
Bring some kind of Catholic base into it, but I have everything Disney. But that's
well. I mean, I know when we went, when we were there the week before you guys went, so I warmed it up for you, and we saw the fireworks at Epcot. So we saw Illuminations.
Yep.
And then we watched the fireworks at the Magic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't stay for the Fantasmic show at Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, we went there.
But we have seen that before.
Oh yeah, okay.
With the huge fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah, I know. It's so cool.
Look, when the Tactical Catholic Disney podcast starts, you guys will have to listen to my episode on fire-breathing dragons, because it's a spectacle.
Yeah.
And the fireworks are phenomenal. They cue them to music, and they're projecting stuff on the castle in Magic Kingdom. It's fireworks well done.
Yes.
And as Americans, we like to see stuff explode. There's a reason why we like to watch Rambo, and why we like to watch what's that movie with all the guys in it, Expendables.
Okay.
We like action movies. And fireworks is like action movies in the sky. So huge explosions. Transformers has a lot of explosions.
Mm-hmm.
So fireworks everywhere, and we like to watch them. And I assume other countries enjoy them as well.
Yeah.
But, when I see fireworks, I just want to say America, because I love fireworks.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about getting to watch some.
Yeah.
But, when you think about fireworks, we think about other things related to fire.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought when we talk about freedoms and liberty, we're celebrating our independence on July 4th. Then we could talk about some of the freedoms that we have and how that relates to our Catholic faith.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough?
Yes.
Well, I hope so, because that's all I've prepared. So just out of curiosity, if you happen to have a catechism on you,
okay,
I prefer the Big Green Daddy.
Yep.
So you see how huge this catechism is? Let me give you some angle there. Look at that. This is some thick catechism.
Yeah.
And this was going to cost you about, it cost me $25.
Mm-hmm. Oop. Okay. $25. I do have a catechism. Oh, I just lost you. Oh, and you're back. Yay.
Hey, this didn't happen last week. No, it didn't happen last week. It happened when we were there with James, didn't it?
Yes.
Completely lost my internet connection. I love it. All right, so like I was saying, Catechism 1731.
Okay.
I'm just going to read this one little thing, because you guys can read it yourself sometime, the whole deal. But we talk about freedom. Here's what the Catechism says.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom is the power rooted in reason and will to act or not to act to do this or that, and so to perform deliberate actions on one's own responsibility. By free will, one shapes one's own life. Human freedom is a force for growth and maturity in truth and goodness. It attains its perfection when directed toward God, our beatitude. So that section talks a lot about freedom, but really, a lot of people get freedom and anarchy confused. And they tend to think that whatever I want. There's no boundary. There's nothing preventing me from doing whatever I want. But that's not freedom. That's the word for that actually is licentiousness. You say that there's no law, there's no rule. That's anarchy. That's licentiousness. We don't believe in that. We believe in freedom. I have the ability to choose good.
Yes.
And then we all have the freedom to choose the good, which also means we have the freedom that we could choose to do wrong. And that's part of our free will that God has given us. But we should order our choices toward God. And so, when we have the freedom to choose good, and that comes with responsibility. So anytime people want to talk to you about, I'm American, I can do whatever I want. Well, in a sense, that's true, right? We have a lot of license in America to do a lot of things.
Right.
But that doesn't make them morally right. And it doesn't free us from the consequences that could happen. So, I like to listen to people, and I'm trying to learn to be a better listener. I heard some guys talking this week about freedom. And, a lot of people are talking about the flag situation in the state of South Carolina. And I don't really know, the state flag of South Carolina is not the Confederate flag, is it?
No, I don't think so. No.
I'm pretty sure their flag has like a palmetto tree on it or something.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
But at any rate, there's a flag flying, right?
Yep.
In South Carolina, Fort Sumter, that's where the first shots of the Civil War were fired.
Yep.
And a lot of people attach their heritage as Southerners and as Southern states to that flag and what it represents. But a lot of other people in the United States attach that flag to slavery and racism. Right? So it's a very heated debate, and I'm not going to try to solve it. But I will say this, that I have the freedom that I could walk into that state, or for that matter, walk into my state and say, hey, that flag needs to come down. And someone else has the same right to get in my face and tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And to argue that point.
Yep.
Where our freedoms stop is when we begin to, if we were to get into an altercation, because then it's a physical dispute, right? We're not speaking, we're not expressing our rights. It becomes then someone is assaulting someone. So, but there's responsibility involved, right? I have the freedom under the First Amendment to say whatever I please, right?
Yep.
And there are some restrictions.
Well,
you have to use common sense here. I can't go into what they always say in civics class. You can't walk into Disney World and say, fire, fire, fire.
Yeah.
You can't cause a riot.
Right.
But we can express our freedom. We can express what we believe. And that's what we talked with John Mark about last week, that when we meet and can share dialogue one to another, that's exercising freedom. At the same time, I could use that freedom to insult somebody, to slander them, I could write and create libel against someone, and I would be responsible for those words that came out of my mouth. Right? So there's responsibility. So we don't get to exercise our freedoms with no strings attached.
Right. Yeah.
There's great responsibility with the freedom that we have. And the way that some people approach, I think some people approach freedom and liberty is to say, well, if people are not using their freedoms in a good way, let's just take them away. Let's just remove them.
Well, and that's a big thing.
Do you hear that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, and I think you see that in you feel like your rights, it was just funny going to the airport, and it's, I haven't been into airport for a couple of years, and just to see the difference between when I went in probably 7-8 years ago compared to this year, you feel like your rights are taken away. I mean, I understand the security and everything, you want to be safe, but stuff like that, can be figured like our freedoms being taken away by a few, those bad apples in the bunch, that those little. And I sometimes feel like when we're using freedom, mentioning our freedoms and saying, like you're saying, we can disagree on something, that's a right. But then when there's a fist or some kind of a gunshot or something, then there's there's a problem. And I think when we are thinking of freedoms in the sense of what our faith, our beliefs right now, with everything with the marriage and everything else going on, it's so difficult to feel like you're really free sometimes in your faith, because sometimes you're boxed in. You feel like I feel like I'm in the garbage dump on Star Wars, where it's closing in very slowly, but you're trying to brace it from closing all the way. But it's just, you're feeling like our faith, morals of our faith are just being closed in, and we can't and other than verbally say something. And I think Al and I were talking earlier about how the bishops are really opening up, and I think with the flag, I mean, it's just tough to I'm not gonna we can't solve that problem, but I think we need to figure out with our faith, how do we open up those conversational boundaries and be respectful. I think that's the thing. It's the hardest thing is to sound like, I mean, when you're hearing priests getting spit on about talking about what they believe, isn't that reversed? Like, isn't that like what they're doing totally opposite of what they were trying to get? They wanted equal equality of a marriage, but now they're spatting on a priest, which is just like, you just don't do that. And I just think freedoms are being lost, and I think our Independence Day this year, we need to use our freedoms and our voice and our actions. Sometimes so I don't know, that's where I'm, I think we have to use action in our.
I think there's not a simple solution to this.
Yeah, I know.
Except one thing that I can say, and that is that we need to exercise our rights. If we're not exercising them, and we're not speaking up and challenging unjust changes to the law, because we live in a constitutional republic, and so as Americans we do, and so we elect representatives that are supposed to represent us and our beliefs. But if we lay back and let someone else do the talking for us, and we don't inform, I'm not saying everybody has to be a politician, but if we just lay back and let the people on TV make all the decisions, then we're going to get exactly what we've got. And unfortunately, I think we've kind of had a media-driven election for the past 40 years. But that doesn't mean that, let's just throw up our hands and try to move to Malta or something. I don't think that's the case. This is still the greatest country in the world, in my opinion. Now, I'm an American. I love my country. I don't like the direction that it goes sometimes. I don't like the way that some of my leaders act, or people that want to represent me. I'm not always agreeing with them. but I'll still fight for this country.
Yeah.
You know, because I love this country. This is where I was born. This is where I intend to stay. So I think if we just lay back and take it, I think that's the worst possible thing we can do. So it pays to know not just to know our faith, but to also know the law of the land, because our faith should inform our understanding of civil law.
Yeah. Great point.
Civil law is based on the natural law that God has placed in the heart of every man. And so, you know, we can silence that and we can create civil laws that go against the natural law, but that's immoral. And the only people that are going to speak up for that are the people that listen to the voice of God. You know, and unfortunately for decades, at least in this country, people have been pretty silent, except to be angry. Lots of people are angry, and I'm afraid in the political sphere, that's really all we see. And it becomes really diatribe and character assassination. Well, let me show you how stupid this other guy is, so that you won't vote for him. But who gets the votes anyway? You know, it needs to be about substance. But anyway, that's another talk. This isn't the political talk necessarily.
Yeah.
But I actually wanted to talk just for a second about guns.
Okay.
Now, I'm not gonna pull guns out on anybody here tonight, but I believe in the Constitution, and I believe that the Constitution gives us as Americans the right to bear arms. So if we have firearms, and every state is allowed to make their own laws for how firearms are to be, you know, maintained. Do you have to register? Do you have to get a license to purchase a gun? What is the background checks and things like that? In the state of Tennessee, you know, you have to have a permit if you want to carry a handgun, but you don't have to have a permit to carry a rifle. But you can't walk down the street with a rifle, because that's to a court of law, you're basically just showing an intent to go armed, and that's you can incite panic. So, you know, if you're going hunting, that's different.
Right. But
anyway, you know, the Second Amendment says that we're supposed to be able to keep a well-regulated militia, and we don't necessarily have a militia these days. But one of the problems and one of the reactions to the colonials at the time were these people that were saying, well, you know, we're gonna station ourselves in your house, you know, by order of the king, and then you know, we're going to take your firearms, or we need you to register those. We need to know who owns a rifle in this town. Well, everybody owns a rifle in this town. You know, these are. I'm not saying that. You know, I'm not against necessarily registration, but I see where that can lead when a government wants to take up arms to enforce something to the populace, right? So, you know, let's say we had an immoral government that says we're gonna force you into these things and force you to do these things. This has happened in history, and you know, if a person can't defend themselves, what are they supposed to do? And that doesn't mean go buy a tank either, folks. But it does mean that, you know, as Americans, we have to use our common sense.
Yes.
And it seems like, and I have to go on just a little rant for a second. You know, there's a growing number of places, buildings that post no guns allowed. Have you seen those?
No.
Okay. Well, next time you walk around town, go, you know, look at the doors and see if you see a pistol with a circle and a line through it. You know, no guns.
Okay.
So let me ask you this question, though.
Yes.
Let's say that's put in a bank. So I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I see that sign, and I say, well, I guess I'm not going to be carrying my pistol into the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, bad guy comes up to the door. Oh, man. You mean I can't take my pistol in there? I guess I'm going to have to go find another place to rob. They don't allow pistols.
I see. Yep.
So do bad guys follow the rules?
No.
So, and I can understand, and I'm going to try to find a point of agreement with people that are trying to increase public safety. I agree with that 100%. But I do think that putting a ban on lawful citizens being able to carry their firearms, concealed weapon, we're not walking around swinging it around. But if someone walked into an Arby's carrying concealed, no one's going to know that they have a gun, and no one needs to know that they have a gun.
Yeah.
They're not going to make it a point because they're exercising their freedom and their responsibility. And just because some Nimrod chooses to use their freedom to do the wrong thing does not mean that you should penalize all law-abiding citizens.
Yes.
Punish the Nimrod and punish their irresponsibility. You have to. We already have laws that do that if they're enforced. But to make blanket statements, we're going to disarm Americans, and I mean there are politicians that want that.
Yeah, I know.
And I have yet to see a statistical study. Was one from Harvard that says, removing guns doesn't reduce violent crime.
Yeah.
It just takes the guns out of the people that can defend their own home. It doesn't take the guns out of the hands of the bad guys.
Right.
They're trafficking illegal weapons. If law enforcement were able and had the funds and the resources, because I'm sure there's limitations, but if they were able to enforce all the laws that exist, that would take the guns off the street.
Yes. Well, that's the
whole
the
illegal
thing.
guns that aren't supposed to be owned. But
Right.
anyway,
Yeah, and it's
I'm
just
thinking about this because it's important.
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
No, it's just like it's so obviously that's how we have to look at things is how do we look at solving the problems, which I don't think it's going to be a problem that we can solve, is how do we solve the problems of these people that, or just the ISIS and all these people that are just thinking of kill. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's a psychological, something in their heads, knowing that I don't care what is going to happen to me or someone else. That's
Right, because they've absorbed an ideology that says I'll use the tip of the sword to get what I want, and what they want is control.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with religion. The religion is their excuse.
No.
And people have done the same thing, not just in Islam, but in a lot of religions. People in the name of their belief in God have committed atrocities, and some people not in the name of God have committed atrocities, and those acts stand on their own.
Yeah.
And religion is not the scapegoat. And that's not to say that there aren't religions that do teach hatred, because it exists.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult to fight an ideology when people buy into that ideology that says it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They have no regard for human dignity, and that's the point. When I read the Catechism about anything, at the core of almost everything we believe as Catholics is the dignity of the human person.
Yep.
It's at the core of everything.
Yes.
And so, and I also wanted to point out one thing. Pierre made a good comment earlier about some of the elected, the appointed judges in the Supreme Court. They are now legislating.
Yes.
From the bench, and this is not the first time it's happened. Don't pretend that it is, but it does seem more common that it's been happening in recent times. And now you're trying to overturn state laws.
Yes.
And that's part of what did start the Civil War, was federal law trying to trump state law.
Yep.
Now, I'm not one of those state laws was the right to own slaves, which is of course wrong, but it wasn't just slavery that was at stake there. There was a lot of state laws, but we struck a balance.
Yes.
In the states. The federal law usually respects the laws of the states, but in the case of the most recent Supreme Court ruling, it does not. And so it has ruled that state laws that take a different stand may have a different interpretation or declared unconstitutional.
Yeah.
So, and that's another topic that we'll have to talk about another night. I promise we will, because we need to talk about marriage and family. It's supremely important that we talk about it.
Yeah, that's a biggie. I mean, it's amazing how.
Let me read this, because again, this comes back to everything. 2258 in the Catechism.
Okay.
Human life is sacred because from its beginning it involves the creative action of God, and it remains forever in a special relationship with the Creator, who is its sole end. God alone is the Lord of life from its beginning until its end. No one can under any circumstance claim for himself the right directly to destroy an innocent human being. Now, there are a lot of words in there that we can unpackage, but I wanted to pull up this because we're talking about freedom, and I'm talking about the Second Amendment, and we might as well talk about guns.
Yes.
This is what paragraph 2263 says. The legitimate defense of persons and societies is not an exception to the prohibition against the murder of the innocent that constitutes intentional killing. The act of self-defense can have a double effect: the preservation of one's own life and the killing of the aggressor. One is intended, the other is not. It's actually a quote from Thomas Aquinas. So it goes on to say that legitimate defense can not only be a right, but a grave duty for one who is responsible for the lives of others. Kent, you and me, we're dads, right?
Yep.
You know, we immediately have people that we're responsible for.
Yep.
The defense of the common good requires that an unjust aggressor be rendered unable to cause harm. For this reason, those who legitimately hold authority also have the right to use arms to repel aggressors against the civil community entrusted to their responsibility. And that distills down even into the domestic church of our homes.
Yes. Yep.
We have a right, not just constitution, but a mandate from God that we have to defend those for whom we are responsible. And that includes our children, that includes our spouses, and any others that are entrusted to our care. We have to. And we read about places where murderers have come into places and tried to start attacking people, and people who don't even know those being attacked rise up to their defense. That's personal responsibility.
Yes.
That is self-donation. That's love for their fellow man. But that stems from something within. That's that drive, that natural law that God has given us that says, it's not right for this person to take those lives. Yeah. I will stop him. I may lose my life in preventing further deaths, but I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah. Well, I think the most amazing part, if you're having an example, is the plane that was crashed down in Pennsylvania on 9/11. I think those men, or probably mostly men, that were trying to take over the plane again, did the ultimate sacrifice and took their lives, but I think we need to understand, as fathers, as wives, as anyone that's in authority, to say, okay, we have a responsibility to obey the laws and also obey what we morally believe in, and to express something that we feel is wrong. That's that's probably the most serious problem about the Catholic faith sometimes, is we don't express our faith and what is right to others. And
right. John Mark was kind of right when he said, well, not kind of right, he's very right, when he said that we end up being more reactive.
Yes.
Rather than just proclaiming what is the truth.
Yes.
And that puts us in an awkward position. And it's not just Catholics. I think a lot of people of faith, other Christian brothers and sisters, don't always know and can't really articulate their beliefs. And so when they're challenged, they don't really know how to react.
Yeah.
Because they're not, you know what I mean? It's, and I heard someone for last week kind of making this comment, when people, Bristol Palin, the news report broke that she's pregnant, and we know that she's always been a very outspoken person with regard to teaching chastity and abstinence. Well, she's pregnant again, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people say, see, and that's why I can't listen to anything that all Christians say. Well, the fact that a person has done something that contradicts does not invalidate what is true.
That's
right.
Great.
If I say that anger is wrong, that we shouldn't allow our emotions control us, but I've lost my temper, that doesn't make it less true that losing our temper is wrong. It's still wrong. I'm just guilty of it.
Yes.
And it goes back to that transparency, people use that all the time. Well, because someone has infracted this statute, it's invalid. It can't be because people are breaking the law. Well, the law must not be any good.
Well, and that's the whole thing about hate the sin, not the sinner. That's the big thing is, you can, all these things that are done that we look at, now we can't, trust in this person to do the right thing.
Right.
They can change. That's the big thing. That's the big thing. I know this is a little off the topic, but it's like with the guns and all that. There was a shooting at I think it was like a Good Fellows store in about 1990, and they went through all the survivors. And one thing at the end of the show, every survivor mentioned that they could basically forgive the shooters for what they've done, taking away a loved one, taking away a fellow employee, but they could forgive. That's the thing that we have to sometimes remember is, how do we forgive the sin or the moral wrong that someone's doing, and have the respect, because they have the freedom to change. They can change if they want to. Right. At least we have to have. It's tough to forgive. I don't like to. I mean, when something's happens to me, it's like, hey, why me? But you have to forgive and almost forget, in a sense. Pray and forgive the person, because I think all these things that are happening with guns, that people say, okay, we have to take away every gun, and it's like that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But how do we figure out how to forgive all these terrible things that are happening? I mean, we can't even go into our churches, especially down in the South, without worrying about looking over our heads now.
Right.
And that's just not right. It's just not right. But we have to somehow pray and forgive. I think that's that's the hard thing to do for a lot of people, but we just have to.
Well, and I think sometimes people mistake, forgiveness and meekness for being a punching bag, or for being a pushover, and that's just not the case.
Right.
No one deserves to be someone else's punching bag.
Yeah,
that's a violation of just the basic dignity of the human person. Anyone that would try to harm their spouse or a child, or someone else's child or someone else's spouse, that's just stupid.
Yeah,
and that's, I mean, it is a blatant attack against the dignity of the human person, and it should be prosecuted. But at the same time, we have, I have the ability, whether it's through some implement in my possession or through my hands or whatever, to harm someone. And for me to be the aggressor and unjustly harm someone else, I'm responsible for that, and I have to face the consequences for that if I choose to do so. Right. But that does not mean that when someone tries to be the unjust aggressor and attack me or someone for whom I'm responsible, I can end that situation.
Yes.
And I have a responsibility to do what I can to end it. And that my responsibility in that is far different than that of the aggressor. Right?
Yes.
So I don't have to just let people attack me. Well, didn't Jesus say turn the other cheek? He's not talking about being your pushover.
Right.
We have to stand up against injustice.
Yes.
What we do talk about, though, when we do forgive people, our brains are hard drives. It's very difficult to erase data.
Yes.
So, Kent, if you punch me in the face, I may not ever forget that. That memory may last with me until the day I die. But if I forgive you, then what I am doing, I'm exercising my freedom and my own self-control to say, though I could hold that against you and I could hold a grudge against you, I'm choosing not to.
Right.
Because I've forgiven you from that. I'm still going to remember the pain. I'm still going to remember what happened. But I'm choosing not to hold that against you anymore.
Yeah.
That's what forgiveness is.
Yes. And you're seeing that with the family members of the shooting down in South Carolina in the church. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's some videotape of in court that as much as how angry these family members are about, these loved ones being taken away, we forgive you. I mean, you could go through a lot of those tapes and it's all forgiveness. They're mad, but they can forgive. And it's right. Very important.
The state's going to take care of justice in that situation. And as people heal, and it takes some of us longer than others to be able to heal and forgive. But it's something that we are called to do. We're called to love our enemies.
Yes.
How impossible is that apart from God's grace? We have to. That doesn't mean that we lay down to them. It doesn't mean that we ignore justice.
Right.
But we don't take vengeance. Right. So
yes.
It's an interesting thing to discuss. And that's, I thought, what better than to bring up the Second Amendment and gun rights around the 4th of July, because that's a hot topic. And as a sportsman myself, I don't believe that the Second Amendment was there just to protect hunters, by the way.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very naive assumption to make. But the fact that I can purchase a firearm for hunting if I want, I can purchase it for home defense if I want. Yeah. That's a freedom that I have. But as we've been saying all night, I have to exercise responsibility for that freedom. Anything that discharges from that firearm, it's my firearm. It's my responsibility. Yes. Right. And that's why, I don't know if you'd ever took hunter safety when you were a kid or not, but when we took hunter safety, one of the rules that we learned was watch the muzzle. Don't ever point a firearm at something you do not intend to destroy. Right. So, and let me give you an interesting example of that responsibility and freedom. So, growing up, every year, every Labor Day was dove hunt.
Okay.
Everybody went dove hunting, and I don't know if you like chicken and dumplings. Do you like them?
Yeah.
Have you ever had dove dumplings?
No.
Let me tell you something. Dove is it's very sweet.
Okay.
It's dark meat, very sweet, and you make dove and dumplings like you make chicken and dumplings. They're fantastic. So we would go dove hunting every Labor Day, and I can remember being in the field. Everybody kind of has a spot, big, huge hay field.
Yep.
Never has a spot. Well, down the same row that I'm in was a kid, and we're hunting. We all got little shotguns. We're young guys, and there was a guy who was resting the muzzle of his gun on his toes.
Okay.
Can you guess where this story's going to go?
I think I can follow. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
The kid blew his toes off.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he was resting the muzzle of his gun. The muzzle, that's the end where the bang bang comes out. He was resting that on his toe and was fiddling with the trigger, which is a stupid thing to do. You don't put your finger in the trigger until you're ready to fire. He was playing with the trigger,
and they
with his
probably
toe on the gun and blew his toes off.
And he didn't have the safety on, probably too.
There's no safety on shotgun, but
yeah.
So he was breaking all kinds of safety rules.
Okay, all right.
But he faced the consequences for that action. Now, it just so happened that on the other side of that row where we were, that fence row, was a physician and got him to the hospital. And I think they were able to save a couple of the toes.
Oh, wow.
But he learned his lesson the hard way.
Yes.
People that leave guns easily accessible by children that don't know or understand or respect firearms, that's stupid. That's irresponsible.
Mm-hmm.
And those kind of people should never purchase guns. They're idiots.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, and I'll give you an example. My children understand firearms. They understand that a firearm is an inanimate object. The gun cannot hurt you.
Yeah.
Someone brandishing it, someone firing it can hurt you. Someone being stupid with it can hurt you.
Yes.
It's the irresponsible person that pulls that trigger or, does something dumb to trigger it. It laying on the table is not going to do anything to you. And my children know guns aren't toys. You don't point them at people. You don't pretend to, and if they're, because I tell this because I'm afraid that one day one of my kids is going to be at a friend's house and the friend's going to be at some idiot's house, and they're going to say, hey, look what I found.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people get hurt. It's irresponsibility and stupidity.
Yes.
And one of the only things we can do is to talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to talk to our children about things like, firearms, firearm safety, not to fear a piece of metal, but to have a healthy respect for what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
A gun is a tool for making holes.
Yes.
When you boil it down to the basics.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in its path. You don't point it at something that you don't intend to destroy.
Yes.
And you certainly, all these rules, right? And there are things that responsible gun owners should know. And the people that break those rules should be punished.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing goes for rules and civil and moral laws about chastity,
Mm-hmm.
About morality and dignity of the human person. When we look at the 10 Commandments, all these commandments against our respect for our fellow man, there's 7 commandments that deal with how we treat other people.
Yeah,
with regard to greed and lust and all these other things.
Uh-huh.
We have the freedom, but we need to exercise the responsibility because we'll pay for it.
Well, and then I think responsibility is huge right now with everything. And, my question is, how do we keep that responsibility? You can't keep everybody in those training and responsibility. There's responsibility and then something in your head. I think I know it's hard to really explain that, but how do we find, other than doing tests and all this other stuff, you can't really find, the goodness. How do you find this, look into someone's, just basically into their soul to know that they're not going to do anything harm? Because I say, you got a good, very high percentage of people that own guns that are not going to do anything but lock them up, keep them safe from anyone else, use them safe, and then put them away. But then how do we figure out with this small portion of these people that just wants that gun to do harm? And that's.
And I don't think there's an easy answer for that.
Yeah.
I mean, as a parent, I would hope that I'm observant enough and that I communicate enough with my children that if my children exhibited some kind of behavior that would lead me to think that they would, do harm to themselves or to someone else, that I would intervene. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think we always know.
Yeah. And that's
any more than I know, I trust and I pray that my wife and I and the community that we live in is providing enough of a good example and good catechesis to my children that they're not going to go out and drink underage, that they're not going to go out and do stupid things. Yeah. But at the same time, they have the freedom.
Yeah.
They could choose to hide information from me. They could choose to deceive me, lie to me, to do immoral things without telling me.
Yep.
I mean that's a risk that we take. Yeah. That's one of the things that happens.
Right. I mean, that's what God.
You know what I mean? It's there's. I don't think there's a foolproof way, just because that's human reason and human free will.
Yep. That's what I was about to say. Yeah. I mean, it's free will that God gives us. How do we use it is the biggest question, and how do we try to teach it to our children is very important. And I think,
and one thing I can say, and you're in the perfect city to be able to when we bring this up on another night, Dr. Ray Guarendi is always talking about discipline. And our kids are going to learn discipline someplace. They're going to learn it from us by the way that we manage our house, by the rules we set up, for the ways we teach responsibility, or they're going to learn it from somewhere else, from a judge, from a police officer, from something happening to them. And we want to get to them first.
Yes.
And Dr. Ray, I think, would agree with this.
Yeah.
But that's the fine line that we walk as parents, and not just as parents, but as citizens. No one is brought up in an island. We live in communities. We live in neighborhoods. We live in cities and states. And we all should exercise our right to help our fellow man to have a properly formed conscience.
Yes.
That's part of what it means to be an evangelist, is to live the faith and declare the faith. And when someone turns around and says, yeah, you say don't be angry, but I know how angry you are, then you say, I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. But here's what I'm doing to work on that, and here's how God is helping me.
Yes.
And here's how things have changed since a year ago. Right? I mean, it's just it's about transparency and honesty. And believe me, there are lots of other shows we're going to.
I know we got a whole bunch of shows, and we're running out of time.
Yeah, I just noticed. So, the closing thing, I wanted to give special thanks to Pierre and everybody else that joined into the chat tonight. Al, you also left a comment, so thanks for giving me a hard time. Hey, you need to eat some Dove dumplings sometime. You would like them.
I have to try them.
But to everybody else, take the time, go to iTunes, leave a review, and next time we have a show, then we'll embarrass you, read your name out loud. And if I can develop a Tactical Catholic review dance, then by golly, I'll do it. Just to be the dancing monkey that dances to get your feedback, because I do appreciate it. And I read every one, all your emails. When you send me a prayer request, I don't read those online unless you ask me to, and then I'll get everybody to pray for you. But we pray for you when we get those, and we'll keep those in confidentiality. So we're praying for you, and we read every email. Thanks for sending them.
Yep.
If you ever want to reach out to us, our email addresses are always at the bottom. You can reach me at Andy@fiatministrynetwork.tv, and you could also reach out to Kent at fiatministrynetwork.tv.
Yep.
So appreciate you guys, and I'm out of time, so I'm just going to say good night and God bless.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us on the Tactical Catholic Podcast, a presentation of the Fiat Ministry Network. Visit us on the web at www.fiatministrynetwork.tv. Good night and God bless.